and with the hope that has been present throughout our history. Our history begins with resilience. Black history in this country started with our ancestors being ripped from the homeland, shipped over the Middle Passage, and sold here as property. Resilience was not only surviving these inhumane conditions and the long enslavement that followed, but never again letting the chains that bound us in the past to ever bind our hearts and minds. It begins with trailblazers like Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth, two of the first to be unapologetically black. They led the fight to be recognized simply as citizens and free our people from the tyranny of oppression and control. In Wisconsin, our story of resilience is the same. I would be remiss if I did not mention Ezekiel Gillespie, who paved the way for us to participate in government by securing our right to vote. Without pioneers like this, where would we be today? Without the sacrifices, the struggles, and the resilience of these who committed their souls and gave their lives to racial equity in America, none of what we celebrate today, this month, or every day would be possible. Our story is also of resurgence. I'm not shocking anyone here when I say that the end of slavery was not the end of black issues in America. Decades of inequality, segregation, and Jim Crow followed. But our predecessors fought long and hard for our resurgence. People like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Ella Baker are all well known for having given their whole spirit to the cause of black resurgence, to ensure that we get a fair and equal treatment under the law. And of course, we must remember those who fought right here in Wisconsin, like Vale Phillips, Lloyd Barbie, and countless others. A fight that continues even today, even with new generational activists such as Wisconsin native Colin Kaepernick. We also must remember the pioneers that fought the less glamorous everyday fight of resurgence, the fight to thrive. We don't remember many of these folks in our history books, but we remember them in our hearts and minds. They're our grandparents, our parents, our aunts and uncles who lived through these periods where the fight for black resurgence was the same as the fight for black success. And as we move today and beyond, we must strive for renewal. Black history is really the story of this renewal. Every low period has seen brave pioneers rise and renew the spirit of our community. All of these people I've mentioned inspired resilience when resilience was needed, resurgence when resurgence was needed, and renewal always. And I'll end with this message to the black lawmakers, public servants, community leaders, allies, and attendants today. It's our turn now. Frederick Douglass, Dr. King, Vale Phillips, and others. It's our turn now to continue to pick up the mantle where they left it. It's our turn to inspire the resilience, resurgence, and renewal that is needed right here today. Because in the end, black history, American history, world history was made by people that look just like us, meaning like we are today, and striving for the betterment of all of our communities and people. With that being said, I would like to introduce the youngest African American to be elected to the state representatives, Mr. Kalen Haywood II.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is the second time I've done this today, so I hope I get it right this time. It is an absolute honor to walk in this building every day. To be the youngest African American ever to elect to a state office. It's humbling. To me, I'm still getting used to it. But it wouldn't have happened for me without the great trailblazers that came before me and that paved the way. They kicked the door in, and I came in behind them, and that was a great opportunity for me. It was also a duty for me to make sure I kicked the door open even wider. When I ran for office, I announced when I was 18 years old. I won when I was 19. When I announced, it was like, this is the craziest thing ever. This 18-year-old, he wants to run for office. Who do you think he is? But I did it for me because I wanted to be in office and I wanted to make a difference. But I also wanted other young people to see that they can do it. That's important. In 2020, I don't want to be the only young person running for office or in office or being a public servant. So me being 19, I've always been told there's this way of doing things. You go to high school, you graduate. You go to college, you graduate. You get a job, and you work your way up the ladder. But in that time, too many young people make mistakes and fall into these traps that doesn't allow them to fulfill their dreams. So I wanted me winning and me running for office to serve as a very clear message. You don't have to wait to be great. I want all young people to know that there's something you're passionate about, something you want to do, go out and do it. If there's anything I can do, I'll make sure I can help. And I also like to say a quote from Dr. King, which I think is very important. Get this phone locked.
Keys in their phones.
Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what you can do for others. I said I'm a public servant earlier. I'm not an elected official, I'm not a public official, I'm a public servant. Because at the end of the day, it's all about service. But you don't have to be elected to take part in breathing life into the definition of service. So my challenge to everyone here today is, as we move forward through Black History Month, as we move forward to 2019, let's make this a year of service. Every day, let's have the challenge of what I can do for others. If we all move with that tempo and that mindset, I can guarantee you the end of 2019 is going to end differently than 2018. 2020 is going to look different than 2019. So let's keep moving forward like that. I'm going to be brief and introduce the next speaker. She's a mother, a pastor, a county supervisor, a representative, and actually she's the first African-American, and she's the first African-American woman from the city of Madison to ever be in the House of, well, be a state rep. So I can introduce Representative Sheila Stubbs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Black History Month. Isn't this awesome? Yes. Thank you all so much for coming out. We know we've experienced very cold weather, so thank you for taking this opportunity to come to your house, this state capitol on today. It does us well to know that we are in the company of some good fighters. Welcome, and thank each of you for coming out today. We're here to kick off our celebration of Black History Month in Wisconsin, at a time to acknowledge our rich contributions to nearly every part of our life in the state, from the arts to civics to politics to literature to music to sports. It is a time to reflect upon a long journey we have taken to get here. And many of you know my journey has been very long. And it's a long road ahead of us. So we cannot get complacent. We cannot get comfortable. We must continue to keep the torch lit. As a member of the Wisconsin Legislative Black Caucus, our presence here today, it's a testament to the resolve of Black families across the state of Wisconsin. For many of us, it's our descendants of slaves. We're humbled to know some of our forefathers were sharecroppers and farmers, migrants who moved north seeking refuge from the brutality of Jim Crow, yes, the Jim Crow ugly laws a generation ago. We are not too far away from the reality, and its legacy stubbornly remains today. But today, we are present with a new opportunity in the state of Wisconsin. Just look behind me. It's a new day in the state of Wisconsin. It's a wonderful opportunity we'll have to heal our families after generations of abuse and neglect and trauma, and the list goes on. We collectively have an opportunity to transform our communities with passion and with love. More importantly, we collectively have an opportunity to invest in our communities with health care and education and more. With the leadership of our newly elected Democratic Governor, Governor Tony Evers, and our newly elected Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, must I tell you today, I stand here because I am hopeful. I dare to change, and this is what change looks like. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it look good? I am hopeful that in the state of Wisconsin, we can seize this opportunity to change where before it wasn't available. Many of you know I stand here on the shoulders of so many of my ancestors, so many that have paved the way before me, so many trailblazers. I am honored to come to this state capitol daily and work on behalf of the constituents of District 77 and for everyone across the state of Wisconsin. As the first African American elected here, it brings me great pride. It's been a long road coming, but I'm so glad it starts with me. I stand here today to give you my commitment. I will create pathways so I will not be the only. I believe in keeping the doors open for as many multitudes that want to come in can come in. One of the things that's really near and dear to my heart is to end racial profiling. It must stop. It must end. And on today, I ask you to say 2 words with me. Enough is enough. God bless you. And next, I have the great distinct honor to introduce our first African American Lieutenant Governor for the state of Wisconsin. I'm going to ask you to get a little comfortable, have a little energy. I'm going to ask you to stand for our first African American Lieutenant Governor for the state of Wisconsin. Open up your mouths for Lieutenant Mandela Barnes.
So thanks again, Representative Stubbs. Thank you all for being here with us today. Special thank you to Representative David Crowley for your leadership as the chair of the legislature's Black and Latino caucus. As a former member of this caucus, I'm so excited about the work that we're going to do together in the coming years. Representative Haywood really, you know, like I joke about when I was 25 when I got elected to the Assembly. Now he showed up at age 19. Just tarnished my legacy. But it's all good. And also, thank you, Representatives Bowen and Representative Fields for being here with us today. When we think about how far we have to go in the state of Wisconsin, we've gotten to a place, but we still have so far to go. I talked about as much in several Dr. Martin Luther King Day celebration remarks. But in 2019, I want people to realize that this is the 400th anniversary of the arrival of enslaved Africans in the British colony of Jamestown, Virginia, 400 years ago. And where we are today, when you look at a state like Wisconsin, we have a lot to be proud of, but we also have a lot of work to do. As unfortunately, we are home to some of the worst racial disparities in education, healthcare access, economics, and incarceration. But to know that we have such strong members of the legislature, we now have probably the most diverse state assembly we've had in a long time, if not ever. And it's important for us to have unique voices at the table. For lack of being at the table, many communities have been on the menu. And the time to change that has long passed, but the time to fix that is now. And to have so many younger voices, to have so many voices of women represented in our legislature at the decision-making table gives me so much pride. So again, I just want to thank the Legislative Black Caucus for inviting me to be here today. It's such an honor to kick off Black History Month, also with Governor Evers. And I want to remind everybody here about the disparities that are no surprise. I talked about it just a little bit before, but the thing is, we're not far removed from the sins of our nation's past. The unjust practices that shaped this country, the profit of our ancestors' bodies, and the days of Jim Crow that continue to haunt us, that have an ill effect on the well-being of African American people throughout our nation and right here in Wisconsin. But like I said, for everything bad, we have a rich tradition, a rich legacy here in the state of Wisconsin. Representative Crowley talked about Ezekiel Gillespie, but we also have the Joshua Glover trial, where he was broken out of jail. He made his way to Wisconsin to seek freedom. And when his slave master tried to come here to retrieve him using the Fugitive Slave Act, not only was he broken out of jail, Wisconsin became the first state to declare the Fugitive Slave Act unconstitutional. With Ezekiel Gillespie, when they said, no, you cannot vote, he said, yes, I'm going to vote. He sued the Board of Elections. Not only did he sue the Board of Elections, he won that case in the Supreme Court. Wisconsin in 1849, through referendum, gave suffrage to African Americans here in the state of Wisconsin. That was the basis of his case. So it is up to us to continue that legacy, that rich, proud tradition of civil rights and social justice This is a moment that we have to take full advantage of, with the people standing with me today, with you all out here in the crowd, because we can't get it done on our own. It means that we have to have the people supporting us in our efforts to make Wisconsin a more fair, equitable, and just state, to make Wisconsin a leader once again. We're better because of the endless contributions made by African Americans here in Wisconsin throughout our history. People like Aaron Perry of today, who's the founder of Rebalanced Life Wellness Association, an organization whose mission is to improve the health of African American men in Dane County. As Lieutenant Governor, I'm committed to lifting up our community and highlighting our contributions to work to advance racial equity and increase opportunity for every child, family, and community in Wisconsin. There is growth in equity. We all do better when we all do better. And as Governor Evers and I shape our agenda, it's imperative that special attention is given to understanding how policies affect communities of color, and we'll lead with the goal of making this state a place better for everyone. Sustainability has been an issue I've taken particular interest in, one that I intend to focus the Lieutenant Governor's office on, because environmental justice impacts communities of color oftentimes 10 times worse than other communities. I'm committed to making Wisconsin a more sustainable state and protecting the natural resources that make Wisconsin so beautiful, because years of ignorance and denial of climate change is having a detrimental impact on the climate, on our planet, and on our communities. Whether it's chemicals in the air we breathe, lead-contaminated water, no person's health and safety should bear the burden of people's ignorance and greed. Our youngest, our children, deserve the opportunity to do great things, and their health and future shouldn't be jeopardized because some people lack the political will to protect and care for them. And back to the equity piece, we know we have the systemic barriers like racism and poverty that have taken a toll on so many, and that's why we have to prioritize the health and being of everybody in our community. That's why we have to invest in our children to make sure that they show up to school ready to learn. Too many people have been left behind in this economy, and while we've been told that things are getting better, unfortunately, the people that we represent don't often see we don't see that. If I could think about the caseload, the type of calls that we got into our office when I was in the assembly, I'm sure they can say the same. It's not equal for everybody. And that's why we all have to work together to make sure we change that. Minimum wage hasn't gone up in 10 years. It's an economy for the few, not the many, and that's what we have to change. We have to bring the most impacted voices to the table. This is a crisis mode right now. We need to make sure that we create that access to quality and affordable health care. We have to make sure that we have a strong foundation in education, where we prioritize schools over prisons, where we reduce the amount of nonviolent offenders, and make sure that we are making communities safer. Again, all the work that we have to do to build a more equitable and sustainable Wisconsin cannot happen unless we do it together. We have a duty to speak out and a right to be heard. We have to make sure that we are taking care of everybody in our community, in our society, for the Wisconsin that we want to see and live in. So together we must go forward in faith and in justice for a brighter tomorrow, for a better future for us all. And with that said, I do have a proclamation from Governor Tony Evers, where we are proclaiming February 2019 as Black History Month in the state of Wisconsin. So. It does no good if I read it to myself. So with that being said, everybody want to, well, since Representative Stubbs had people stand for me, let's have everybody stand for the Governor of the state of Wisconsin, my good friend, Governor Tony Evers.
How about that? A mandated standing ovation. That's what I like about Mandela. Anyway, thanks, Mandela, for the great introduction. It's good to be here, and of course, Representative Stubbs for inviting me to be here today, and of course, the Black Caucus. So, I just have to talk about one more thing that has been talked about already, and I'm really honored to be here around the issue of Black History Month. but most importantly with Lieutenant Governor Barnes. First black Lieutenant Governor and the highest elected African American person in the history of our state. That's extraordinary. Of course, Representative Stubbs, who is the first black representative from Dane County. That is another extraordinary. So, Black History Month gives us an opportunity to celebrate and remember the critical contributions of our African American Wisconsinites and also those from America to our society and to our country. It's also probably more important to reflect upon and acknowledge and take ownership of our state and our country's history. But it's a stark reminder for me personally of how much work we still have to do. You think about it, from issues around the state's achievement gap to criminal justice reform, reducing correction spending, to increasing housing affordability and accessibility, and improving the health conditions of African American women in particular. We're still a far, far ways out from where we should be. A lot of work to do, and that's what history is all about, learning from history, certainly celebrating and acknowledging our past, but most importantly, moving forward in a real productive way. So we have to work for equality and equity, inclusion. Diversity and inclusion, frankly, make us smarter as a state, make us more knowledgeable as a state. We have to recognize that. The governor and the lieutenant governor and all these elected officials behind me, they believe that also. They understand the importance of it, and I believe their compadres in the legislature also agree with that. So this week I gave my State of the State address, and we talked about connecting the dots, and that's the other thing we have to focus on. It's about seeing the forest from the trees. It's about seeing how there's a connection between access to affordable housing, how that affects kids in the classroom. It's about seeing the connection between drug and alcohol abuse and our burgeoning criminal justice system. It's about seeing the connection between a budding black entrepreneur who wants to start his or her own business and how the rising cost of health insurance or lack of any startup funds will prevent them from reaching that dream. Today and this month is not just about our history. More importantly, it's about our future too. And as we celebrate Black History Month, let us celebrate, but not just dwell on the progress we made. We have made lots, but by recognizing and renewing our commitment to equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion for everybody and every day for our future. So thanks so much for being here today. It's an honor to be here.
So that will conclude our Black History Month program kickoff. We will have refreshments and some snacks available for folks who are interested in room 18 West. If you are interested in attending any of the Black History Month events, you can look on here. We have a poster board that have many of the events on there. You can also reach out to many of the African American elected officials here at the state capitol to learn about what's happening throughout the month. We will be having events every week. And again, thank you again for all being here. Appreciate it. You want to grab a photo of us? Yes. Can we step out over here?